Hey guys, today we will build a furnace that does not require fuel input. Instead, the furnace will require a gas medium and lots of electricity. The theory is that we will use wall coolers and wall heaters to pump heat into the gas medium, and then pump the hot gas into the furnace. This is probably going to be the most challenging task that you can ever accomplish in a game. And you might ask, what could be so difficult about pumping hot gas into a furnace? Well, let me tell you that even with a 50 kilowatt system, I've been able to smelt every alloy in the game except Invar. What makes Invar seem impossible to smelt is that it requires a temperature of 1100 Kelvin at a pressure of 6 megapascals. The 50 kilowatt system that I previously had involves brute force heat pumping directly into the furnace, which failed to reach required conditions to smelt Invar. Hard lesson learned, we need a different method, and we need to plan it carefully. Before we launch Stationeers, we will use draw.io to carefully plan our setup. I hope you will learn something meaningful from this experiment, and we will find out at the end of this video if we are successful. Alright, so I have some parts that I've used before to sketch up some diagrams, but I also have additional parts that's not on this list here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these out. I'm going to load my updated list of parts. So the first thing we want to do here is we want a supply of gas. For instance, if this cylinder represents my tank, then we need to pressurize this tank. So imagine this is my passive vent.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? The dark side and the light.
So what I'm setting up here is a pressure regulator and a back pressure regulator to keep my tank pressurized to a certain nominal pressure. Now, I'm assuming that we will be building this furnace on Mars, so we'll be using Mars' atmosphere to pressurize our system. And we want a goal supply pressure of, I don't know, 10 megapascals. We can call this our supply tank. This is, of course, our pressure regulator. This is our back pressure regulator. I think I have that backwards. All right. And now we need a heating chamber. And our heating chamber will simply be made out of pipes. This is a volume pump.
DMT and other psychedelics dissolve the perception that you only hear. Like a mirror, allowing you to see the reflection of yourself there. And if you are already there, you have nothing to fear when exploring the psychedelics. If you trip on psychedelics, specifically DMT, the key is your setting your mindset prior to going in. I always prepare myself mentally for the experience if I'm using DMT.
We'll be using wall coolers to heat our pipes, because wall coolers are heat pumps. This will be our buffer pump. And of course, this will be our buffer tank. The buffer tank will hold hot gas before we pump it into the furnace, because the furnace is very leaky. And so one of the reasons why my previous design, that is for the 50 kilowatt system, the reason why it failed is because the furnace was leaky, that no matter how much power I was consuming to pump hot air as quickly as possible, I could not pump the air fast enough and heat it fast enough to reach 6 megapascals with a temperature of 1100 Kelvin. That was not possible. And so what I need now is to be able to contain the hot gas at a high pressure before I deliver it to the furnace. Alright, and from the buffer tank, then we can pump the hot gas into the furnace. So we're going to pretend that this square is our furnace. And of course we need a pump to pump out the gas from the furnace once we're done with it. And of course, when we're done using the system, we need a way to drain the hot gas back to the supply tank. Alright, and we also need a way to cool the hot gas when we're finished with it. Now, I did not make a pipe radiator. Unfortunately, I should have done that. But for now, we can just use any random square and call that a pipe radiator. So I'm going to go ahead and use these things. What is going on here? No. It's doing it again. Hate that. All right, and here's our basic setup. However, remember that our furnace is leaky, so we need a way to contain that gas as well. So we will need another vent. All right, so we have a lot of pumps here, and those need to all be logically controlled. And we will be using integrated circuits to control those. I need to save this diagram. All right, now we have to keep in mind that when the wall coolers are in operation, they quickly cool off the room that they are in. And at some point, the room gets so cold that they become basically inefficient. And so we need to balance out that that effect by adding wall heaters. Now for simplicity, I'm going to shift these over. Okay, like that. Also, I just realized that I am missing something here. I need a pipe analyzer. So the pipe analyzer is going to keep track of the temperature and pressure inside the pipe. And when the temperature is high enough, it's going to go ahead and pump that into the buffer tank. Now imagine that all of this is inside of a room. Now on top of this, we have to consider that the room needs to be pressurized. Which means we need another one of this. we could actually pressurize this room using the supply tank's gas. Alright, you get the idea. Alright, so here's our basic setup. We will need to replicate this in the game, and we also need to set up some logic circuits to control these pumps. We will also need several switches. One controls the pressure. Another controls the temperature. Let's use a dial. And the last one is to, well, actually we'll probably need 4 switches. We need a lever to control the pumping of the gas. And we need a lever to turn on the system itself. Shoot. So depending on these 4 switches, everything else will operate. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to take care of something and I will be right back in a few minutes.
Imagine that we receive a message from an alien civilization. People of Earth, we will arrive on your planet in 50 years. Get ready. Alright guys, I'm back. While I was gone, I realized that
using pressure regulators to supply gas to the supply tank and take a long time. So what we will do here is we will use pumps, and these will be logically controlled. All right, I think this is everything we need. Now the idea here is to pump heat as quickly as possible into a small volume of pipes, and you want to keep this at a low pressure. Alright, now I think the next step here is we will brainstorm the logic that controls this system. So I'm going to go ahead and create a large text box. Now for our supply here, we have an input that reads the supply tank pressure. Let me redo this. So these are my logic statements that I want to write out. This will help me program the integrated circuits later. So when the supply tank pressure is less than 10 megapascals, we want to turn on the supply pump. And when the supply tank pressure is greater than 10 megapascals, we want to turn on the drain pump. Over here we can leave this be, because we expect a nominal 10 kPa pressure inside this room at all times. However, we do need a sensor. This sensor will tell us the conditions of the room. When the room gets too cold, we want to turn on the heating elements. That is the wall heaters. So let's go ahead and write some script for that. Or let's write some logic statements for that one. Now, these three lines will be active at all times. But these pumps will operate conditionally depending on switches. Now, when the conditions are not good enough for these pipes, we want to turn on the wall coolers. But we want these wall coolers to be on as triggered. Or we can say thyristor. Now a thyristor simple explanation is a thyristor turns on when a certain condition is met, and then it stays on even if those conditions are no longer true. And it stays on until a different condition is given to turn it back off. So here we want to put our pipe analyzer. When it's less than our target temperature. Call this our target temp. Like, let's just put these over here. We want to turn our wall coolers off when the temperature is above our target temperature. However, the trigger for turning on the well coolers is when the pipe analyzer pressure is, let's say, when it's greater than 10 kPa. And so we will fill the pipes to 10 kPa and then turn on the wall coolers. And the wall coolers will stay on until the temperature is greater than the target temperature. Now we still need a condition to turn on the heater supply pump. So we'll get back to that soon. Alright, now the next step here is to turn on the buffer supply pump. And this will be the same trigger. So you could put those together. And the buffer supply pump will stay on until the pressure in the pipe is, let's say, until it's less than 0.001 kPa. In other words, until it's less than 1 Pascal. So you want to completely empty the pipe. And once it's empty, then we will resupply the pipe. We will resupply the air.
It is simply a matter of time.
And when that condition is met, we want to turn the heater supply on. Given those same conditions. So when this turns off, that turns on. And that will pressurize the pipe. And therefore we have this loop here. We want to turn the heater supply off when these conditions are met. So the cycle continues. And so we have 1, 2, 3 devices here, 4 and 5. We have 5 devices. But we need a way to turn the system on and off. And we also need another condition if system off. And we need to define what that means. So this is the lever system operate equals 1 times the buffer tank pressure is less than 10 megapascals. Well, yeah, we can keep this pressurized to 10 megapascals. And that'll be a large supply for our furnace. And so all of these operations depend on if the system is on. So that will be our sixth device will be an input value that tells this whole system to turn on or off. And so I hope that all of this script here, all this logic statements here can fit in a single IC. That's the goal. Hopefully, these can fit on a single IC as well. Yeah. All right. So when the system is off, we want this pump to always remain off, and this pump to remain on. Everything else off. Now, actually, come to think about it, we can use this as an air conditioning system to also keep the room cool if it gets too hot. So we can say wall coolers on when the temperature is greater than About 300 degrees, sorry, 30 degrees Celsius. There may be a little bit of interference between this IC and this IC. Actually, you could probably go much hotter than this. So how about 50 degrees Celsius? Now these do not need to be thyristors. So all this can hopefully fit onto one IC. If not, we'll break it up into two ICs. So this is for this set. So you got 1, 2, 3 devices here. 4, 5, 6. There are 6 devices. And for this guy, I have the one device. I'm going to call this one device because it's going to receive a single value, probably from an external memory circuit. So one device, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
World War I, depression.
Yes, 6 devices as well.
You gave us the Dark Ages, 5 centuries, and capped it off by bringing the entire planet to the brink of destruction in the Cuban Missile Crisis. The last time I
Over here,
screwed up place.
oh no, this is not all going to fit on one chip. Yeah, this is not going to fit. We may need to break these each into separate devices. Yeah. The reason was because I forgot to consider our target pressure and our target temperature. Yeah, this is quite tricky. And they need to be thyristors too. I may be possibly looking at breaking it up this way, so that each device, or sorry, each IC only controls one output. So each IC will be in itself a thyristor. Yep, it's gonna have to be this way. So 3 ICs for this section, another IC for this section, so that's 3 ICs. And then we're looking at the possibility of a 5th IC that controls those 4 ICs. Possibly. Otherwise, what I could do is add this logic statement internal to each one of these ICs. All right. So now we need to look at this section here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're already at 5 devices just for these guys. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. This one is always on. These 2 devices need to turn on when the system is not in operation. Those two can share a single IC.
We are now within the shadow.
Alright, I just realized something.
The overwhelming phenomena in the world of three-dimensional space and time. And I call this the omega point, or the transcendental object at the end of history. And I believe it is not that far off that the emergence of global internet, molecular ships, billions of electronic sphere. We are now within the shadow.
So I have one device, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a six device system. Now for this guy, while the system is operating and the buffer tank is full, we need a way to turn this off. So here's how we're going to do it. Our coolers only turn on under these conditions. Alright, so you want all of our pumps to be off when the buffer tank is full. And of course, these can each be separate ICs. So we have, for example, here we have one device, type analyzer, second device, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, these will each be separate ICs. This will be a single IC. And that takes care of everything in this room. And it also takes care of these pumps. The next part we need to work on is this lever here, furnace supply. When the furnace supply is on, it conditionally turns on the furnace supply pump. And it also conditionally turns on the drain. When the furnace supply lever is on, then these two pumps act as a regulator to regulate the pressure and temperature in the furnace based on our settings. So we will need several devices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, so that's going to take up the entire IC. So here, if furnace supply on, and then from there it's just the regulator circuit, kind of like up here. So we can probably copy this. So we'll have two conditions that will turn on the supply pump. And those conditions are when the conditions are not met.
For ourselves and for future generations, a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be.
So when the furnace pressure is less than target pressure, or when furnace temperature is less than target temp. And I think this should complete that integrated circuit. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 integrated circuits. We also need to convert dial numbers into actual pressure and temperature values. So we can have one more simple IC. Target pressure is equal to dial target pressure times 100, and likewise target temperature is dial target temperature times 100. This is one device. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is already all 6 ports on the IC. We also need here is an external multiplier. And I think this is all the IC that we will need. I think we are ready to begin constructing the system and also programming the ICs. Alright, so I'm going to stop the video here. And I will continue this on part 2. Thanks for watching this far. Thanks for bearing with me. We'll hope that the next video is not going to be as boring. Alright guys, take care.